Connecting minds across the globe. Welcome to Easy Insights Radio.
Imagine you're listening to an English learning audio show. You hit play and you hear the host, Emma, chewing her breakfast.
All right.
You literally hear the unmistakable crunch of the toast. You hear her co-host, Alex, laughing. It sounds perfectly human.
Oh, yeah, completely natural.
Right. It sounds intimate, real, and, flawlessly paced for a beginner. But the thing is, Emma isn't real. Alex isn't real.
The toast doesn't
The
exist.
toast doesn't exist. And the script she's supposedly reading from isn't just a script. It is actually a set of, psychological tripwires. They're meticulously designed to hack your brain's memory centers.
Yeah, we are looking at a document today that essentially functions as a Trojan horse. On the surface, it masquerades as a simple bilingual text file written in Japanese and English.
Yeah.
But its actual purpose is to serve as a command module.
Wow.
It is a highly engineered instruction manual meant to be fed into an artificial intelligence, specifically Notebook LM.
Okay, so the mission for today's deep dive is to completely tear this document apart. We are analyzing the raw, architectural blueprints of a synthetic educational experience.
Exactly.
The author of this document has essentially written a code to force an AI to generate a flawless A1-level English learning audio show from absolute scratch.
And they even gave it a title.
Right. They titled this fictional show Breakfast Time on the Fictional Easy podcast.
The layers here are just fascinating because we have a human author writing a script for AI avatars, right?
Yeah.
Who are then programmed to simulate human hosts, who then use specific pedagogical techniques to teach human listeners. It creates this incredible feedback loop between human neurology and machine learning architecture.
So if you are listening to this right now, you should care about this document for, two massive reasons.
Right.
First, it exposes exactly how users are currently manipulating AI tools to generate bespoke, hyper-personalized content. We are way past the era of generic textbooks.
Oh, entirely.
Second, and I think perhaps more importantly, this document inadvertently provides a masterclass in the raw mechanics of human learning.
Yes.
By looking at how the AI is instructed to teach, we get a brilliant look under the hood of how the human brain actually acquires new information, process by process. We get to see the strings attached to the puppets.
Well, the author clearly understands that adult language acquisition requires a very specific environment to succeed.
Yeah.
The document doesn't begin with the fictional podcast script. It begins with this meta layer. The author provides the user with direct, unyielding instructions on how to override the AI's default behavior before the lesson even starts.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Yep.
So the instructions say to save the text as a simple text file or a Google Doc, upload it to Notebook LM, and hit the audio overview feature.
Right.
Now, if you've played with that specific tool, its default setting is to generate this breezy, fast-paced NPR-style banter between two synthetic hosts.
Which sounds incredibly natural.
Exactly. But natural is terrible for an absolute beginner.
Yeah.
So the author provides a targeted prompt to basically hijack the AI. The exact English prompt provided is, let me read this. Please speak very slowly for A1 English learners, pausing after key phrases.
And every single word in that command is carrying an immense technical load.
Real.
Yeah. To understand why, we have to look at how large language models actually process instructions.
Right.
These models don't, understand concepts the way we do. They operate on probability distributions across vast networks of data, constrained by what we call context windows.
Okay, stop right there and explain the context window concept, because that jargon gets thrown around constantly. What is actually happening inside the machine when I type those words?
Think of a context window as the AI's short-term working memory, or perhaps the stage where a play is happening.
Okay, a stage.
Yeah. Everything you put into that window, the text file, your prompts, your instructions, those are the actors and props currently on stage. The AI looks at everything on that stage to predict what the absolute most probable next word, or in this case, the next audio frequency, should be.
Interesting.
So when the prompt says, please speak very slowly, it directly targets the temporal parameters of the voice generation model. It is mathematically stretching the space between phonemes.
Okay, but the next part of the prompt is the real anchor, right? For A1 English learners.
Yes, that phrase fundamentally alters the probability matrix of the entire model.
Yeah.
A1 is not just some casual term.
Right, it's official.
Exactly. It is a rigid, universally recognized benchmark in the Common European Framework of Reference for Languages. It officially designates a breakthrough or absolute beginner. The moment the AI processes the token A1, it searches its training data for the acoustic and linguistic properties associated with beginner instruction.
So it changes its whole personality.
Yes. It forces the synthetic voices to drop complex vocabulary, adopt a highly encouraging distinct intonation pattern, and, over-enunciate consonants.
Yeah.
It locks the AI into a distinct teaching persona.
So the AI is essentially doing an impression of a kindergarten teacher based on millions of hours of audio data.
Precisely.
And then we hit the final clause of the prompt, pausing after key phrases. Why is the artificial silence just as important as the spoken words?
Because the silence is where the cognitive processing actually happens. In neurobiology, there is a measurable latency when a human brain encounters novel linguistic stimuli.
Like a lag.
Exactly.
Yeah.
When a beginner hears a foreign word, the auditory cortex first has to decode the raw sound wave into recognized phonemes. Then, that signal travels to Wernicke's area to search for semantic meaning, essentially translating it.
Right.
Finally, the brain has to encode the syntactic structure to understand how that word functions in the sentence.
Wow, so it's a massive processing chain happening in milliseconds.
And if the speech stream continues without a break, the brain's working memory buffer overflows.
It crashes.
Yeah, the learner experiences severe cognitive overload. The succeeding words pile up before the first word is translated, and the audio certainly degrades into pure, indistinguishable noise.
That makes total sense.
So by explicitly commanding the AI to build in artificial negative space, the prompt is engineering a release valve for the listener's working memory. It gives the brain the required fraction of a second to complete the decoding process before the next wave of data arrives.
It's like watching a complex sports play in slow motion with freeze frames. You need the action to stop so the commentator can circle the players on the screen. Otherwise, you just miss the strategy entirely.
That's a great way to put it.
But, okay, this brings up a directive in the author's instructions that genuinely baffles me. I want to challenge the logic here a bit.
Go ahead.
The document warns the user that Notebook LM might output a short audio file. It gives a rigid contingency plan. It says if the generated audio does not hit a full 30-minute length, the user must go into the system's customize feature. They are instructed to force the AI to speak even slower, add even longer pauses, or explicitly command it to repeat phrases for pronunciation practice just to artificially stretch this tiny breakfast script out to half an hour.
Manipulating the temporal output to meet a strict duration quota.
Yes. And that sounds like an absolute torture device for human attention spans.
Mm-hmm.
We are talking about taking a script that to be read in 3 minutes and blowing it up to 30 minutes of painfully slow, aggressively repetitive synthetic dialogue.
I see your point.
In what universe does a learner not just completely zone out by minute 5? I mean, padding content just to hit a metric is usually a cardinal sin in educational design.
Viewed through the lens of passive consumption, you are entirely correct.
Okay.
If the listener is treating this like a traditional podcast, just sitting on the couch and letting the audio wash over them, 30 minutes of padded A1 repetition would be agonizing.
It really would.
But the author's instructions reveal a fundamental shift in the expected utility of the audio. What's fascinating here is they are not engineering a broadcast to be listened to. They're engineering an acoustic gym for the user's mouth.
An acoustic gym. Okay, walk me through that.
Speaking a foreign language is not merely a cognitive exercise, it is a highly complex motor skill.
Like physical movement.
Yes.
Yeah.
Your tongue, your lips, your jaw, and your vocal cords are muscles that have spent your entire life moving in specific, deeply grooved patterns dictated by your native language.
Right.
When you learn English or Japanese or Arabic, you are demanding that those muscles contort into entirely novel shapes. The artificial pauses the author is demanding aren't just for mental decoding. They are literal stage time for the listener to physically practice.
Oh, shadow speaking.
Precisely. The technique is called shadowing. The user hears the AI say, "I am eating," and then uses that agonizingly long, artificially generated pause to say, "I am eating" out loud, trying to match the AI's exact intonation and rhythm. The 30-minute target isn't meant to deliver 30 minutes of new information. It is designed to deliver 3 minutes of new information and 27 minutes of neuromuscular conditioning.
That changes the entire paradigm of the user experience.
Completely.
You are no longer buying a finalized, polished textbook where you just read chapter after chapter. You are stepping into the role of the producer.
Yes.
You have to calibrate the tension on the gym equipment before you work out. Like, if you need a quick vocabulary refresher, you prompt the AI for a fast 5-minute overview.
Right.
But if you need to physically train your facial muscles to pronounce new vowels, you prompt the AI to stretch the material into a 30-minute repetition gauntlet. The static textbook is dead. The educational material is now a responsive, malleable entity that you have to command.
It demands an incredibly active posture from the learner from the very first second.
Okay, so having mapped out the technical and psychological demands of the prompt, we really need to look at the payload itself. We need to look at the actual script the AI is being forced to perform.
The content.
Right. The document breaks the fictional podcast down into highly deliberate sequential parts. Let's look at the opening scene of Breakfast Time.
Part 1 is titled, What Are You Doing? Or in Japanese, Ima Nani Shiteru.
Oh.
The scene opens with the two synthetic hosts introducing themselves. But the very next line in the script isn't dialogue.
No.
It is an explicit stage direction for the AI.
Right. The script demands an audio cue. It dictates, wait, let me quote this, munching sound mogu mogu suru oto.
Yeah.
The Japanese onomatopoeia, mogu mogu, specifically conveys the continuous action of chewing food.
And incorporating Foley art sound effects into the beginning of a language lesson serves a critical function. It instantly grounds the abstract language in a shared physical reality.
How so?
Before a single grammar rule is introduced, the learner's brain registers the sound of chewing. This activates sensory memories and prepares the neural pathways associated with food and eating.
So it preps the brain. Then Alex reacts to the sound effect. He says, "Haha, Emma, what are you doing?" Emma replies, "I'm eating breakfast right now." And boom, we hit the first major pedagogical pivot of the document.
It's so fast.
The casual narrative drops instantly, and the script turns into a surgical grammar breakdown. Alex says, "Oh, nice. Eat means tabaru, and I am eating means tabatiru."
The efficiency here is just brutal. At the A1 level, ambiguity is the enemy of retention. The script does not attempt to teach through pure context or subtle clues.
Right.
It steps completely outside of the narrative immersion to hand the learner the exact dictionary definition. It introduces one of the most foundational yet conceptually difficult structures in English, the present continuous tense.
It explicitly separates the base verb from the ongoing action.
Yes. By mapping the English base verb eat directly to the Japanese base verb tabaru, and then mapping the English continuous am eating to the Japanese continuous tabatiru, the script hijacks the learner's existing linguistic architecture.
It's piggybacking on what they already know.
Exactly. The Japanese speaker already possesses a flawless mental model of how an action becomes continuous. The script simply drapes the new English vocabulary over that pre-existing scaffolding.
And then Emma reinforces the concept immediately by tying it to the listener's presumed current environment. She says, "Yes, I am eating. You can listen to this podcast while you are eating your breakfast too." They are relentlessly hammering the continuous ing sound.
Which naturally progresses into part 2 of the script, asking questions. Emma asks Alex what he's eating, providing the exact Japanese translation, nani o tabateru no.
Okay, this is where we need to examine the specific dietary choices the author assigned to these characters, the menu, essentially.
Yes, let's look at that.
Alex states, "Today I am eating toast and eggs. Simple and delicious." Emma replies, "I am eating cereal with milk. It is very fast to make." The script then introduces a let's practice section, forcing the listener to repeat the exchange. "What are you eating?" "I am eating toast."
The vocabulary is incredibly restricted here.
It is aggressively boring. I mean, toast, eggs, cereal, milk. These are the most universally mundane examples imaginable. I joked about this earlier, but seriously, is cereal really faster to make than toast?
It's debatable.
Right. Why not inject some personality into the characters? Why not have Alex eating a complex, culturally specific dish? Why rely on such flat, frictionless nouns?
We have to return to the concept of cognitive processing limits, specifically cognitive load theory, developed by John Sweller in the late 1980s.
Okay.
Sweller posited that our working memory has a strictly limited capacity for processing new information. Let's use a computer analogy. Your working memory is the RAM, and your long-term memory is the hard drive.
Oh, I like this. So learning the present continuous tense is like downloading a major new operating system update into the RAM.
Exactly. When the learner is trying to master I am eating, combined with the question formation, what are you eating, their RAM is almost entirely saturated.
Because of the grammar math?
Right. They have to remember the pronoun matching, that am pairs with I and are pairs with you, while remembering to append the ing suffix to the verb.
The system is running at 99% capacity, just handling that structure.
So if the script were to introduce a novel, complex vocabulary word at this exact moment, let's say Alex says he is eating a flaky croissant with a dollop of boysenberry preserve. The RAM crashes.
Right.
The cognitive load exceeds capacity. The learner stops processing the grammatical structure entirely because their brain redirects all resources to figuring out what boysenberry means, how to spell croissant, and whether preserve means jam or saving something from destruction.
The vocabulary just completely hijacks the lesson. The hard drive never gets the operating system update because the RAM froze trying to open a massive, unnecessary image file.
The mundane nature of the vocabulary is not a lack of creativity. It is a highly calibrated pedagogical tool. By utilizing concepts the learner already understands completely: toast, eggs, cereal. The cognitive load of the vocabulary drops to near zero.
It becomes invisible.
The noun becomes entirely transparent. This allows 100% of the learner's available cognitive bandwidth to focus on the heavy lifting of the new syntactic structure. The boringness ensures focus.
So the vehicle carrying the grammar lesson must be as invisible as possible. That is just brilliant design.
It really is.
And this philosophy of minimizing friction while maximizing physical action leads directly into part 3 of the script. And in my opinion, this section introduces the most fascinating, bizarre, and effective learning strategy in the entire document.
Ah, the soliloquy.
Yes. Part 3 is titled Cooking Soliloquy, translated as Ryori suru toki no hitori goto. Alex asks Emma if she cooks. Emma reveals her secret practice method. She says, "Sometimes, when I cook, I like to speak English to myself. It is a great way to practice."
And Alex validates this.
He explicitly names the technique, a soliloquy. Hitorigoto desu ne.
Hitorigoto is a common Japanese term that translates to speaking to oneself, muttering, or thinking out loud. But weaponizing it as a formal, structured language acquisition technique is a profound choice by the author.
Well, here's where it gets really interesting. The script provides the exact step-by-step narration Emma uses in her kitchen. For making toast, she narrates her physical actions in real time. She says, "First, I put the bread in the toaster. Now I wait. Oh, it's done. It smells good."
And the script rigidly translates every beat. Mazu pano to suta ni iramasu, sa machimasu wa yaketa issinyoi.
Right. And then she performs the identical narrative process for frying an egg. Next, I crack the egg, I cook it in the pan, perfect.
Tsugi ni tamago o warimasu, forepan de yakimasu kanbeki.
Alex chimes in to highlight the specific vocabulary being used. He points out the phrases put in, wait, and crack the egg. He labels them great A1 words. Now, I want to dig deep into the neurology here. Why is anchoring a spoken vocabulary word to a kinetic physical action, like the physical sensation of cracking an egg, so vastly superior to just memorizing a flashcard?
It comes down to the fundamental difference between semantic memory and episodic memory.
Okay, what's the difference?
Semantic memory is the storage of facts, concepts, and meanings devoid of context. When you stare at a screen and read the text, "crack the egg" 20 times, you are building a semantic memory. It is incredibly fragile.
It's just floating data.
Exactly. It lacks structural integrity in the brain and is highly susceptible to being forgotten. But episodic memory is the memory of autobiographical events, times, places, associated emotions, and sensory inputs.
Ah, okay.
The hippocampus thrives on multisensory encoding. When a learner stands in their actual kitchen, holding a cold sizzle egg, feels the weight of it, hears the sharp sound of the shell fracturing against the ceramic bowl, smells the heat radiating from the iron pan,
Right.
and at that precise kinesthetic moment, forces their vocal cords to say the words, "I cracked the egg," they are engaging multiple neural pathways simultaneously.
You are literally wiring the vocabulary word into the physical environment.
Yes. The language ceases to be an abstract puzzle to be solved and becomes an integrated component of physical reality. The action itself becomes the trigger for the vocabulary. It's an incredibly robust mnemonic device.
I mean, it's like a sports commentator narrating their own life. But okay,
Yeah.
I fully understand the memory science there, I really do. But I have to push back on the social aspect of this.
Yeah.
We are constantly told by language experts, polyglots, and teachers that conversation is the gold standard. You have to get out there and talk to native speakers. This script is explicitly instructing the listener to hide in their kitchen and talk to their appliances. Doesn't isolating the learner like this cripple their ability to actually converse? Does speaking to a toaster actually bridge the gap to real fluency?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, to understand why the soliloquy is superior for absolute beginners, we have to look at the work of linguist Stephen Krashen. specifically his hypothesis of the effective filter.
The effective filter. Break that down for someone who has never heard the term.
Krashen proposed that emotional variables act as a literal barrier to language acquisition. When a learner experiences high anxiety, self-doubt, or fear of embarrassment, their amygdala, the brain's threat response center, activates.
And that physically stops learning.
Yes. This stress response floods the system with cortisol and physically impedes the brain's ability to process and consolidate new linguistic input. The filter goes up, and learning halts entirely.
So if I'm terrified of looking stupid, my brain physically refuses to learn the language.
Yes. Now put an A1 beginner in a real-time conversation with a native speaker. The social pressure is astronomical. The learner is frantically trying to decode incoming audio, translate it, formulate a response, encode the grammar, and manipulate their facial muscles to pronounce it correctly.
All while trying not to look foolish.
All while managing the intense social anxiety of making a mistake in front of a judging human being. The effective filter is a brick wall. Very little actual acquisition happens because the brain is locked in a social survival mode.
Think about the last time you, the listener, tried to learn a complex new hobby, say golf, or playing the guitar while an expert stood over your shoulder watching your every move. The performance anxiety just destroys your ability to absorb the mechanics.
But when you are alone in your kitchen, narrating the act of making toast, the effective filter drops to zero.
Because no one's watching.
There is no judgment. There is no social consequence for mispronouncing toaster. The soliloquy creates a psychologically safe sandbox where the learner can experiment with the physical sounds of the language, sequence their physical reality with the syntax, and build foundational neuromuscular confidence.
Wow.
You cannot perform in a high-stress social dynamic until you have commanded the mechanics in isolation.
You have to shadow box in the mirror before you step into the ring. The kitchen soliloquy isn't hiding, it's essential foundational drilling. It is reps without the fear of dropping the weight.
Exactly.
Which brings us to the final section of the blueprint, where the script moves to solidify all these isolated concepts into a rapid-fire review.
Right. Part 4 is titled Useful Breakfast Words, or Choshoku no Tengocho.
The structure here is a ping-pong vocabulary drill. Emma demands the listener's participation. She says, let's review some basic words for breakfast. Repeat after us. Alex drops the English noun, and the script provides the Japanese.
Like a rapid-fire sequence.
Yeah. Alex says bread. Emma says toast. Alex says egg. Emma says cereal. They finish the list with milk, coffee, and orange juice. And we get all the Japanese translations. Pan, tosuto, tamago, shiriaru, gunyu, kohi, orange juice.
The list itself is standard, but the architectural brilliance lies in what the script does immediately following the list. It refuses to leave these nouns floating in a void. It instantly contextualizes the vocabulary with an actionable verb.
Okay, yes. Alex says, when you drink your coffee or milk today, you can say, I'm drinking coffee. The script translates the target outcome, watashi wa kohi o nandemasu.
And then Emma explicitly defines the grammatical rule operating underneath the sentence, mirroring the opening of the lesson. Drink is nomu, I am drinking is nanderu.
It creates a perfectly symmetrical pedagogical loop.
It does. The lesson opened by teaching the continuous verb eating, applied to solid objects. It closes by teaching the continuous verb drinking, applied to the liquids they just reviewed. It hands the learner a new noun, and then immediately hands them the grammatical tool required to operationalize that noun in their environment today.
But looking at this vocabulary list, I notice a very specific distinction the author made, and I want to know why. The script separates bread and toast into two completely distinct vocabulary entries.
That's a good catch.
If we are trying to minimize cognitive load for an A1 learner, why burden them with this distinction? Isn't toast just warm bread? Why not just teach the word bread and let them use it universally for a while?
It is a critical distinction that introduces the concept of ontological linguistics.
Ontological linguistics. You need to explain that.
So language doesn't just describe the world, it categorizes it. At the A1 stage, distinguishing between a raw material and its prepared, altered state is vital because the state change dictates which verbs can interact with the noun. Think back to Emma's soliloquy. The verbs associated with bread revolve around manipulation of the raw material. She says, I put the bread in the toaster. But once the application of heat triggers a chemical state change, the Maillard reaction, it ceases to be bread linguistically.
It becomes toast.
Right. And the verbs associated with toast are entirely different. The toast is done. The toast smells good. By separating the two words, the script is subtly training the learner's brain to recognize that English categorizes the world based on state changes. The ontological shift from raw material to finished product requires a vocabulary shift.
The language forces you to acknowledge the physics of the kitchen. That is incredible. But, observing how this entire vocabulary section operates brings up a massive controversial debate in modern education.
Oh, the debate over translation versus immersion.
Yes. Look at the blueprint. Every single English word, phrase, and grammatical rule in this document is instantly paired with an uncompromising, exact Japanese translation. It is 100% translated.
This raises an important question about methodology, absolutely.
The modern immersion camp of language learning would look at this script and be horrified. They argue that providing translations creates a mental crutch. The learner will always translate the English into Japanese in their head before understanding it, rather than learning to think natively in English.
That's the argument.
The immersion camp says you should strip out all the Japanese, point to a picture of toast, say the word toast, and force the brain to figure it out through context.
The debate is fierce, but the author of this blueprint is taking a very firm, scientifically backed stance for adult learners.
Defend the translation approach. Why is immersion a bad idea here?
Immersion is highly effective for children because their brains possess neuroplasticity that allows them to acquire language intuitively without existing frameworks. But an adult A1 learner already possesses a fully calcified, highly complex native language architecture.
Right.
When you plunge an adult into pure immersion, the cognitive cost of constantly guessing what a word means from context causes immense fatigue. And it spikes the affective filter we discussed earlier.
The anxiety goes up because they don't know the rules of the game they're playing.
Precisely. By providing the exact translation, the script provides instant, frictionless comprehension. The learner doesn't have to waste their limited RAM trying to guess what cereal is. They know immediately.
So it's efficient.
Yes. This allows them to allocate all their cognitive resources toward the actual physical pronunciation and the syntactic patterning. For the breakthrough stage, clarity, comfort, and direct mapping onto existing neural networks drastically outperform the terrifying ambiguity of pure immersion.
The translation isn't a crutch, it's the scaffolding required to build the first floor of the house. You can remove it later, but you need it to pour the concrete.
Exactly.
The script ends on a note designed to maintain that psychological comfort, actually. Alex and Emma wrap up the podcast. Emma thanks the listener, and Alex delivers a warm sign-off. Eat a good breakfast and have a wonderful day.
It solidifies the parasocial relationship. The AI hosts are engineered to feel like supportive companions integrated directly into the user's morning routine.
So what does this all mean? If you are listening to us right now, the application of this deep dive extends far beyond learning English or Japanese. The underlying philosophy of this document is a master key for self-education.
It really is.
It proves that every mundane routine in your life, making your morning coffee, folding your laundry, starting your car, is a built-in framework for acquiring a new skill. You don't need to carve out a sterile, isolated hour at a desk with a textbook. If you can break your daily actions down into their simplest component parts and narrate the process, your reality becomes the classroom. The fiction of your daily life is the curriculum.
You leverage your existing episodic memory to anchor new knowledge.
Right. To bring all of this together, what we have analyzed today is a document of staggering dual utility. On the surface layer, it is a masterfully constructed, highly rigid A1 lesson. It utilizes Foley sound effects to ground abstract concepts, deploys universally boring vocabulary to eliminate cognitive overload.
It maps new grammar directly onto native frameworks.
Yes. And utilizes the psychological safety of the kitchen soliloquy to bypass the brain's stress responses.
But the foundational layer is a testament to the future of technological interaction. It is a prompt manual. It is a set of rigid psychological commands designed to bend a massive neural network to the user's exact pedagogical will, manipulating temporal pacing and synthetic personas to create a bespoke audio tutor.
Which leaves us with a truly disruptive final thought to ponder. We just spent this entire deep dive breaking down how a simple text file, literally a few paragraphs of translated dialogue and stage directions, can completely hijack an AI to generate a fully realized, emotionally warm, perfectly paced educational podcast, complete with the sound of crunching toast.
The implications for the educational publishing industry are staggering.
Exactly. What happens to the traditional language textbook in 5 years? Will we even buy books containing static lessons anymore? Or will the educational market pivot entirely to selling prompt architecture?
The real possibility.
Will you simply purchase a highly engineered set of meta instructions that you feed into your personal AI, which then scans your daily schedule, your specific learning anxieties, and your exact environment to generate a custom curriculum every single morning?
The static textbook, filled with chapters that cannot adapt to the writer, is becoming a relic. The future of learning belongs to the dynamic prompt. The value is no longer in the information itself, but in the instructions used to summon that information.
We started this deep dive talking about finding the blueprints to a finished house of grammar. It turns out this document isn't the blueprint for a house at all. It is the blueprint for the machine that builds the house around you in real time while you are standing in it. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep examining the structures around you, keep looking for the hidden instructions, and as always, keep questioning the information.
For lesson. If you like this video, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. See you next time. Bye.